Close your eyes now and take a slow, deep breath in. Hold it gently for a moment and release. Feel your body settling, sinking a little deeper into comfort, letting go of the day. Tonight, we're traveling together, back through time, to ancient Rome, the eternal city, a place of marble temples and flowing fountains, of warm sun on ancient stones, of civilization that lasted over 1,000 years. Imagine yourself standing on one of Rome's 7 hills. The afternoon sun is warm on your shoulders. Before you stretches a city of breathtaking beauty, terracotta rooftops, white marble columns, the distant gleam of bronze statues catching the light. The air carries the scent of cypress trees and wood smoke from cooking fires. You can hear the gentle sound of water. Rome was a city of fountains, you see. Water flowing constantly through aqueducts and into public spaces. The sound was everywhere, soothing, constant, like the heartbeat of the city itself. The ancient Romans were master engineers. They built aqueducts that carried fresh water from mountain springs sometimes over 50 miles away, using only gravity and carefully calculated gradients. No pumps, no electricity, just brilliant mathematical precision in stone. From your vantage point on the Palatine Hill, you can see the Forum below, that grand public space where Romans gathered for politics, religion, and commerce. Temple columns rise gracefully into the blue sky. Market stalls dot the edges. People move about their daily business in a rhythm as old as the city itself. Rome wasn't built in a day, as the saying goes. The city grew slowly over centuries. According to legend, it was founded in 753 BCE by Romulus on the banks of the Tiber River. From that small settlement of mud huts, it grew into the greatest city of the ancient world, at its height, home to over 1 million people. This made Rome larger than any European city would be again until London in the 19th century, a metropolis unmatched for over 1,000 years after Rome's decline. Let yourself relax even more now. Feel the warmth of that Roman sun, the gentle breeze. You're perfectly safe here, perfectly calm. Just a peaceful visitor to this ancient world. You begin to walk slowly down from the Palatine Hill, taking your time. Your footsteps soft on the ancient paving stones. There's no hurry, nowhere you need to be, just this gentle exploration. The streets of Rome were paved with large, flat stones fitted carefully together. These roads were built to last centuries, and many did. Some Roman roads are still in use today, 2,000 years later. The Romans had a saying, all roads lead to Rome, because their network of roads connected every corner of their vast empire back to the central city. The main roads were wide enough for 2 carts to pass each other, but in the narrow side streets, the buildings rise 3, 4, sometimes 5 stories high, creating cool shadows and intimate passages. You can hear voices floating from upper windows, someone singing, children laughing, the everyday sounds of city life. Most Romans lived in apartment buildings called insulae. These were the ancient equivalent of our modern apartment complexes. The ground floors often housed shops and taverns, while families lived in the floors above. The higher you lived, the cheaper the rent, though it also meant more stairs to climb carrying water and groceries. The very wealthy lived in private houses called domus, with rooms arranged around a central courtyard open to the sky, but most Romans experienced life in these vertical neighborhoods. As you walk, you notice a thermopolium on the corner, a kind of ancient fast food restaurant. The front counter has large ceramic jars sunk into it, filled with hot food. You can smell something delicious, perhaps a stew of lentils and vegetables, fresh bread, the sharp tang of wine. Romans loved to eat out. Many apartment dwellers had no kitchens, or only small braziers for cooking, so they relied on these street food vendors for hot meals. A complete meal might cost only a few asses, the small bronze coins most Romans carried. Imagine yourself pausing to watch the Thermopolium. The owner ladles steaming food into clay bowls. Customers stand at the counter or sit on simple benches, chatting, eating, enjoying a moment of rest in their day. The scene is so ordinary, so peacefully human. It could almost be today. You continue walking, passing a fountain where people are filling clay jugs with fresh water. The fountain is decorated with carved marble, perhaps a dolphin or a lion's head, water pouring from its mouth in a constant stream. The Romans believed that water should be beautiful as well as useful, that even practical things deserved artistic attention. The afternoon is growing warmer now, and you find yourself drawn toward one of Rome's great public baths. You can hear the sound of water, splashing, echoing, inviting. The Roman baths were so much more than places to wash. They were social centers, recreation complexes, places where Romans of all classes could mingle, relax, exercise, and spend hours of leisure time. And the entry fee was minimal, usually just a quadrans, the smallest denomination of coin, affordable to nearly everyone. This made the baths a true public amenity, where a laborer could bathe beside a senator, and social barriers temporarily dissolved in the warm water. You enter through the great doors. The baths of Caracalla, perhaps, or the baths of Diocletian. These massive complexes could accommodate thousands of bathers at once. The entrance hall soars above you, sunlight streams through high windows, the air is warm and slightly humid, carrying the scent of perfumed oils and clean water. The Romans followed a specific routine at the baths. You would begin in the apoditerium, the changing room, where you'd leave your clothes in a cubbyhole or with an attendant. Then you might exercise in the palestra, an open courtyard where people wrestled, played ball games, or lifted weights. After working up a sweat, you progressed through rooms of increasing heat, the tepidarium with warm water, the caldarium with hot water, and finally the frigidarium with its cold plunge pool. Imagine yourself now in the caldarium, the hot room. Steam rises from the large central pool. The water is heated by a hypocaust system, an ingenious Roman invention where fires beneath the floor heated the stones, which warmed the rooms above and the water in the pools. The floor is actually raised on small pillars called pili, creating a space underneath for hot air to circulate. Even the walls have hollow spaces through which the heat flows. It's an ancient form of central heating, keeping the baths perfectly warm even in winter. You ease yourself into the warm water, feeling your muscles relax, the heat soaking in. The ceiling above is vaulted and beautiful, perhaps decorated with mosaics showing sea creatures or mythological scenes. Everything catches the light from the high windows, creating a dreamlike atmosphere of steam and sunbeams. Other bathers chat quietly. Some are having their skin scraped with strigils, curved metal tools used to remove oil, sweat, and dirt. Romans didn't use soap as we know it. Instead, they covered themselves with olive oil, then scraped it off, taking the dirt with it. The baths also had libraries, gardens, and even snack bars. You could spend an entire afternoon here, moving from hot to cold pools, getting a massage, reading, socializing. It was a complete wellness experience, available to all Romans. After bathing, you might be anointed with perfumed oil, lavender, perhaps, or rose. The Romans loved fragrances. They imported them from across their empire and beyond. Egypt, Arabia, India, exotic scents that spoke of distant lands. Refreshed from the baths, you make your way toward the Forum Romanum, the heart of ancient Rome. The late afternoon sun casts long, golden shadows across the paving stones. The Forum began as a marshy valley between Rome's hills. The early Romans drained it with a great sewer called the Cloaca Maxima, one of the world's first sewage systems, parts of which still function today after more than 2,500 years. This engineering feat transformed an unusable swamp into Rome's most important public space. As you enter the Forum, you're surrounded by temples, basilicas, and monuments. Each building tells a story, commemorates a victory, honors a god. The Temple of Saturn stands with its 8 surviving columns. Inside was kept the state treasury. Saturn was the god of agriculture and time, celebrated each December during Saturnalia, a festival when social norms were temporarily reversed and even slaves were served by their masters. The Temple of Vesta is smaller, more intimate, circular in design. Inside, the Vestal Virgins tended the sacred flame that represented Rome's eternal spirit. These priestesses were among the most respected people in Rome. They took vows of chastity for 30 years of service, beginning in childhood. In exchange, they received privileges no other women had. They could own property, free slaves, and their word in court carried special weight. If a condemned criminal happened to meet a Vestal on his way to execution, he would be automatically pardoned. You paused to rest on the steps of the Basilica Julia. This massive building served as a courthouse and public meeting hall. You can imagine lawyers arguing cases, crowds gathering to listen. The Romans loved rhetoric and debate. Many citizens could spend hours listening to skilled orators. The word basilica comes from the Greek for royal hall, and these buildings were indeed magnificent, high ceilings supported by rows of columns, spaces large enough to accommodate hundreds of people. The Romans later adapted this architectural form for Christian churches, and basilicas remain a common church design to this day. As you sit, watching the forum's activity, you notice the rostrum, a speaker's platform. It's decorated with the bronze beaks of ships. These beaks, called rostra in Latin, were taken from enemy ships defeated in battle. The platform took its name from these trophies, and that's why we still call a speaker's podium a rostrum. Nearby stands a triumphal arch. The Arch of Septimius Severus, perhaps. These arches commemorated military victories and were covered in carved reliefs showing battles and conquered peoples. But more than mere decoration, they were architectural innovations. The Romans perfected the arch, which allowed them to build larger and more stable structures than ever before. The arch distributes weight around a curve rather than straight down, making it stronger than post and lintel construction. This simple principle enabled Rome's engineering marvels. The sun is lowering now, casting everything in warm amber light. Let's step away from public spaces and into the private world of a Roman home. Imagine entering a domus, a private townhouse belonging to a wealthy family. You step through the front door directly into the atrium, A central hall opened to the sky through a rectangular opening called the compluvium. Beneath it, a shallow pool called the impluvium collects rainwater. This design was both practical, providing water and light, and beautiful. The play of sunlight on water creates dancing reflections on the walls. The atrium's walls might be painted with frescoes, perhaps scenes from mythology, or architectural illusions that make the rooms seem larger, or garden views that bring nature indoors. Roman artists were masters of perspective and trompe-l'oeil, creating paintings so realistic they seemed to extend the space beyond the walls. Some of these frescoes, preserved by the volcanic ash that buried Pompeii and Herculaneum, still glow with vivid colors nearly 2,000 years later. Off the atrium are cubicula, small bedrooms. The Romans didn't need large bedrooms because they used them mainly for sleeping. Most living happened in common spaces. Beds were simple, wooden frames with rope webbing and mattresses stuffed with wool or straw. People slept under blankets in winter and light linen covers in summer. Beyond the atrium lies the tablinum, the master's office or study, and beyond that, the peristyle, an enclosed garden courtyard surrounded by columns. This was the true heart of the home, a private paradise. Picture yourself now in this peristyle garden, sitting on a marble bench. The evening air is perfumed with roses and jasmine. A fountain plays softly in the center, perhaps a bronze figure of a nymph or faun, water trickling from a vase or shell. Small birds flit between the flowering shrubs. The light is golden and gentle. The Romans loved gardens. They grew both ornamental flowers and practical herbs. Roses, lilies, and violets for beauty. Rosemary, thyme, and lavender for cooking and medicine. Box hedges trimmed into shapes, climbing vines trained over pergolas. Creating beauty in their private spaces was deeply important to Romans of means. In the triclinium, the dining room, low couches are arranged around three sides of a table. Romans reclined while eating, propping themselves on their left elbows and eating with their right hands. Forks weren't used. Instead, people ate with their fingers or with spoons for liquid dishes. A formal Roman dinner party, called a cena, could last for hours, progressing through multiple courses, with entertainment between musicians, perhaps, or poetry readings. Roman cuisine was more sophisticated than many realize. They had access to ingredients from across their vast empire. Olive oil from Spain, garum, a fermented fish sauce, from coastal cities, pepper and cinnamon from the Far East. They made dishes we'd recognize, roasted meats, stews, bread, cheese, vegetables, and dishes we'd find strange, like dormice fattened on nuts and considered a delicacy. The evening deepens, but the city remains active. Romans often worked late into the evening by lamplight. And always, you can hear water flowing, splashing. Rome's lifeblood. Let's follow the water to its source. Imagine yourself traveling outside the city walls, into the countryside. The setting sun paints the sky in shades of coral and purple. And there, stretching across the landscape, is one of Rome's greatest achievements, an aqueduct. The Aqua Claudia, perhaps one of 11 major aqueducts that supplied Rome with water. This one carried water from springs in the Anio Valley, over 45 miles away. For most of that distance, the water flowed through underground channels, but where valleys had to be crossed, the Romans built these magnificent arcaded bridges. Multiple tiers of arches rise above the landscape, some reaching over 100 feet high, yet the gradient of the water channel was so gentle, dropping only about an inch every 300 feet, that the water flowed smoothly by gravity alone. These aqueducts were engineering marvels, built of stone and concrete, without modern tools or machinery, yet some are still standing nearly 2,000 years later. At Rome's peak, the aqueduct system delivered about 300 gallons of water per person per day to the city. That's more than most modern cities provide. All this water was free to the public, supplied by the state as a civic duty. The water fed hundreds of public fountains throughout Rome, about 1,300 of them at the city's height. No Roman had to walk more than a few blocks to find fresh water. It also supplied the public baths, flushed the sewers, filled decorative fountains in wealthy homes, and even powered water mills for grinding grain. Imagine sitting now beside an ancient aqueduct as twilight deepens. You can hear the water flowing through the channel at the top, constant, eternal. The stone is still warm from the day's sun. The air is cooling, becoming more comfortable. Everything is peaceful. The aqueduct stands as a silent testament to Roman ingenuity, carrying water just as it has for centuries. The word plumbing comes from the Latin plumbum, meaning lead, because the Romans used lead pipes for some of their water distribution. Though modern historians debate how much this affected health, the Romans themselves were aware that lead could be harmful. The architect Vitruvius warned that water carried in lead pipes was less healthy than water from earthenware pipes. An hour has passed. You're drifting peacefully through ancient Rome. Let's turn now toward the Colosseum, that magnificent amphitheater, but we'll think of it in the evening, when the day's spectacles are over and the building stands peaceful under the stars. The Colosseum's real name was the Flavian Amphitheater, built by Emperors Vespasian and his son Titus. It took just 8 years to complete, from 72 to 80 CE. An incredible achievement. The name Colosseum came later, possibly from a colossal statue of Emperor Nero that once stood nearby. This amphitheater could hold between 50,000 and 80,000 spectators, making it larger than most modern sports stadiums. The Romans developed a sophisticated system of numbered archways and internal corridors that allowed this enormous crowd to enter, find their seats, and exit efficiently. Modern stadium designers still study Roman amphitheater architecture for insights into crowd management and flow. The Colosseum had a retractable awning system called the velarium, made of canvas, that could be extended to shade spectators from the sun. Sailors from Rome's naval base were specially trained to operate the ropes and pulleys that controlled this massive canopy. It was like a giant sail stretched across the top of the building. Imagine standing outside the Colosseum now on a quiet evening. The arches rise in tiers, 3 levels of arcades. The lowest level in the sturdy Doric order, the second in the graceful Ionic style, the top in the ornate Corinthian order. This progression from simple to elaborate as the eye moved upward was a Roman architectural principle. The exterior was originally covered in travertine marble, gleaming white. Though much of that stone was later removed and reused in other buildings, you can still see the holes where bronze clamps once held the blocks together. The bronze was valuable and was extracted long ago, leaving these distinctive marks. Below the Colosseum's wooden floor was the hypogeum, an elaborate network of tunnels and chambers. Here, elaborate stage machinery operated, trapdoors that could raise animals or scenery to the arena floor, ramps and lifts operated by counterweights and human power. It was theatrical engineering on a grand scale. The Romans loved spectacle, and they developed sophisticated technology to create dramatic effects. But tonight, the Colosseum is quiet, empty, peaceful. The moon rises above its rim, casting silver light through the arches. You can almost hear the echo of all those crowds, all that history, but it's a gentle echo, softened by time. The building stands as a monument to Roman engineering, to their love of public entertainment, to their ability to create structures that would endure for millennia. So deeply relaxed now, drifting peacefully through this ancient world. Let's think about the emperors, those men who ruled Rome and shaped history. Rome began as a kingdom, then became a republic, and finally, in 27 BCE, transitioned to imperial rule under Augustus. He was the first Roman emperor, though he carefully avoided that title, preferring princeps, first citizen. Augustus understood that Romans valued their republican traditions, so he maintained the forms of republican government while holding real power himself. Augustus ruled for 41 years, longer than any emperor who followed, and his reign brought peace after a century of civil wars. This period of relative peace and prosperity became known as the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. It lasted approximately 200 years, during which Rome's borders were mostly secure and trade flourished throughout the empire. During this time, someone could travel from Britain to Egypt using Roman roads and staying in Roman towns, all protected by Roman law. Augustus was a master of propaganda. He commissioned poets like Virgil and Horace to celebrate his achievements. He had his image reproduced in statues throughout the empire. He built numerous public buildings in Rome and famously said that he found Rome a city of brick and left it a city of marble. Many of the marble structures we associate with ancient Rome were actually built or renovated during his reign. One of the most beloved emperors was Marcus Aurelius, a philosopher king who wrote meditations on Stoic philosophy while leading military campaigns. His bronze equestrian statue still stands in Rome today. He ruled from 161 to 180 CE and was known for his wisdom, self-discipline, and sense of duty. In his private writings, he reminded himself to be humble, patient, and kind, showing that even emperors struggled with the same challenges of character that all humans face. Imagine yourself now in the peaceful evening, walking past the Arapaces, the altar of peace, built by Augustus. Its marble walls are carved with reliefs showing religious processions, families with children, garlands of fruit and flowers. It celebrated the peace that Augustus brought to Rome after decades of war. The message was clear: peace brought prosperity, family, abundance. These were the fruits of good governance. The Emperor Hadrian, who ruled from 117 to 138 CE, was an architect and builder. He traveled throughout the empire, strengthening defenses and building monuments. In Britain, he built Hadrian's Wall, a stone fortification running 73 miles across the width of Britain, marking the northern frontier of Roman control. In Rome, he rebuilt the Pantheon, that magnificent temple with its perfect dome and oculus open to the sky, a building so perfectly proportioned and so well constructed that it remains the world's largest unreinforced concrete dome nearly 2,000 years later. Imagine standing inside the Pantheon on a quiet evening. The circular space soars above you. The dome seems to float. The oculus, the circular opening at the dome's center, shows a perfect circle of darkening sky. When rain falls, it comes straight through, but the floor is slightly convex with drains, so the water runs off quickly. The space is serene, spiritual, timeless. This building has been in continuous use longer than almost any other structure in the world. Deeper into relaxation now, so calm, so peaceful. Let's explore the Roman legacy of law and thought. The Romans were master legislators. They developed a sophisticated legal system based on written law, professional judges, and the principle that laws should be publicly known and fairly applied. The foundation was the 12 Tables, Rome's first written law code, created around 450 BCE. These bronze tablets were displayed in the forum where everyone could read them. The principle was revolutionary. Citizens should know the laws that govern them. From this beginning, Roman law evolved to become incredibly comprehensive, covering property rights, contracts, inheritance, marriage, criminal offenses, and civil disputes. Roman legal principles like innocent until proven guilty and the burden of proof lies with the accuser still underpin Western legal systems today. The Romans also developed the concept of natural law, the idea that certain principles of justice and rights are universal and inherent to human nature, not just created by governments. This concept influenced later European law and the development of ideas about human rights. Many of the greatest Roman thinkers were Stoic philosophers. Stoicism taught that virtue was the highest good, that we should accept what we cannot control and focus on what we can, our own thoughts and actions. That external events don't disturb us, our judgments about events do. Seneca, a Stoic philosopher and advisor to Emperor Nero, wrote beautiful essays on topics like the shortness of life, the importance of friendship, and how to maintain tranquility of mind. His writings are still read today for their practical wisdom. He reminded people that we suffer more in imagination than in reality, that worry about the future steals joy from the present. Advice is relevant now as it was 2,000 years ago. Imagine yourself now in a quiet library, scrolls stored in cubbyholes lining the walls. The evening lamp flickers gently. You unroll a scroll and read the opening of Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. But he continues, I can't be harmed by them, and I can't feel anger at them. We were born to work together. The Romans valued education. Wealthy families hired Greek tutors to teach their children. Boys and some girls learned to read and write, study literature, practice rhetoric, and understand mathematics. The goal was to produce well-rounded individuals who could think clearly, speak persuasively, and act ethically. This educational ideal, creating citizens who were both cultured and capable, influenced Western education for centuries. So relax now, drifting peacefully. Let's explore the spiritual life of ancient Rome. The Romans were polytheistic. They worshipped many gods. Some were borrowed from the Greeks. Jupiter from Zeus, Mars from Ares, Venus from Aphrodite. But the Romans gave these deities their own character, their own Roman identity. Religion in Rome was practical, transactional, almost businesslike. The motto was Deutida, I give so that you might give. If you made proper offerings and prayers to the gods, you could expect their favor in return. Religion was less about personal spirituality and more about maintaining the Pax Deorum, peace with the gods, which ensured the prosperity of Rome. Every home had a lararium, a small shrine, where the family honored their household gods. The Lares protected the home and family. The Penates guarded the storeroom and pantry. Each morning, the family would make small offerings, perhaps a bit of food or a pinch of incense, to these protective spirits. This domestic religion created a sense that the divine was intimately involved in daily life, watching over every household with benevolent care. The Romans also honored their ancestors. Ancestor masks were kept in the atrium, and during funerals, family members would wear these masks in procession, representing the continued presence of those who had died. Death wasn't an absolute end but a transition to becoming one of the family's protective spirits. Roman religious festivals filled the calendar. The Saturnalia in December was perhaps the most beloved, a week-long celebration when social norms were inverted. Masters served their slaves at banquets. People exchanged gifts. Gambling, usually restricted, was permitted. Everyone wore the pileus, a felt cap that symbolized freedom. It was a time of joy, abundance, and temporary equality. Many of our Christmas traditions can be traced back to Saturnalia celebrations. Imagine yourself now at a small neighborhood temple as evening falls. The priest performs the evening sacrifice, a simple offering of incense and wine. The smoke rises straight into the still air. You can smell the frankincense, sweet and cleansing. The ritual is peaceful, meditative, a moment of connection with the divine. The Vestals, whom we met earlier at the Temple of Vesta, maintained Rome's sacred fire. This flame represented the eternal spirit of Rome and was never allowed to go out. If it did, it was considered a terrible omen. The Vestal's duty was sacred and prestigious. They lived in a special house near the Forum, received the best seats at public events, and had bodyguards when they went out in public. Later in Rome's history, new religions began to arrive from the east. The cult of Isis from Egypt, Mithraism from Persia, Christianity from Judea. Rome's relative religious tolerance meant that different faiths could coexist, though sometimes tensions arose. Christianity, which began as a small sect, gradually grew until Emperor Constantine converted in the 4th century CE, fundamentally changing both Rome and Christianity itself. Deeper still, so peaceful. Let's think about Rome's physical legacy, the structures that still stand after 2 millennia. The Romans invented concrete, or rather, they perfected it. Roman concrete, called opus caementitium, was made from lime, volcanic ash called pozzolana, and rubble. This material could be poured into forms, allowing Romans to create curved shapes in vast interior spaces impossible with stone blocks alone. The dome of the Pantheon, the vaults of the Great Baths, the Colosseum's massive walls, all depend on concrete. And Roman concrete actually grows stronger over time. As seawater interacts with the volcanic ash, it creates new minerals that reinforce the material. Modern scientists study ancient Roman concrete to understand why it has outlasted many modern buildings. Roman roads were famous throughout the empire, built in layers, large stones at the bottom for foundation, then progressively smaller stones, topped with fitted paving slabs, cambered slightly to allow water to run off. These roads were built so well that some are still in use today. The Appian Way, built starting in 312 BCE, connected Rome to southern Italy and still exists as a recognizable road. Bridges were another Roman specialty. The Pons Fabricius in Rome, built in 62 BCE, still carries traffic across the Tiber River today. It's the oldest Roman bridge still in use. Think about that, a bridge built over 2,000 years ago that people drive across every day. Imagine yourself now standing on that ancient bridge as evening deepens. The Tiber flows beneath you, that same river that Rome was built beside nearly 3,000 years ago. The water reflects the lights beginning to glow in buildings along the banks. You rest your hands on the stone railing, worn smooth by countless hands over countless centuries. The Romans loved arches, triumphal arches, arcade arches, vaulted arches. They understood that an arch could span greater distances and bear more weight than a flat lentil. They used arches to build bridges across wide rivers, multiple tiers of arches to create aqueducts crossing deep valleys, arched vaults to roof vast interior spaces. This architectural vocabulary gave Rome its distinctive skyline and allowed construction on an unprecedented scale. Apartment buildings, those insulae we mentioned earlier, could reach 5 or 6 stories, making Rome a city of skyscrapers by ancient standards. This vertical building was necessary because of Rome's dense population. Emperor Augustus eventually set a height limit of about 70 feet because buildings had a tendency to collapse if built too tall with ancient construction methods. Wealthy Romans commissioned elaborate tombs along the roads outside the city. It was illegal to bury the dead within city walls for health reasons. So the roads leading into Rome were lined with monuments to the deceased, some simple, some elaborate mausoleums. The tomb of Cecilia Medela, a massive cylindrical structure on the Appian Way, still stands today, a testament to one woman's memory preserved in stone. So deeply relaxed now, drifting. Let's think about ordinary Romans, the everyday moments that made up their lives. A Roman's day began early. Most people rose with the sun. There was no artificial lighting beyond oil lamps and candles, which were expensive, so people naturally lived by natural light. Breakfast, if eaten at all, was simple, bread dipped in wine, perhaps, or some fruit. The morning was for work. Romans valued industry and accomplishment. The concept of odium, leisure time, was important, but it was meant to be earned through negotium, business, work. A balanced life included both productivity and rest. Romans greeted each other with salve or ave, be well, be healthy. They shook hands or, among close friends, embraced and kissed on the cheek. Social bonds were important. Networks of patronage and friendship held society together. A wealthy patron would have clients who greeted him each morning, seeking favors or assistance. In return, clients provided political support and enhanced their patron's prestige. Children in Rome played with toys that would be familiar to us: dolls, toy soldiers, balls, hoops to roll with sticks. They played games like knucklebones, similar to jacks. They kept pets, dogs, cats, birds. Roman life, despite being ancient, had many recognizable human elements. Imagine a Roman child's voice, high and clear, echoing off stone walls as they play in a narrow street. Imagine a mother calling them home for dinner as evening falls. Imagine the universal quality of family life, love and care transcending the centuries. Romans loved graffiti. In Pompeii, preserved by volcanic ash, we can still read graffiti from almost 2,000 years ago. Some are political slogans, some are declarations of love, some are simply people leaving their mark, saying I was here. Just as people do today. One piece of Pompeii graffiti reads, "Everyone writes on the walls but me." Ancient Roman humor still legible today. Evening was time for leisure. After work came bathing, socializing, dinner. Romans didn't have electric entertainment, but they had each other, conversation, music, storytelling. The rhythm of life was slower, more connected to the passage of the sun and seasons. As night fell, most people stayed home. The streets could be dangerous in darkness. There was no police force as we know it. Though Rome did have the vigiles, watchmen who primarily fought fires but also kept some order. A fire department was essential in a city of wooden buildings, oil lamps, and cooking fires. Imagine yourself now in a quiet Roman home as night deepens. An oil lamp flickers on a table, casting dancing shadows. The day is done. Family members are settling for sleep. Perhaps someone is telling a story, their voice soft, soot. The ancient Romans knew how to rest, how to find peace at the end of the day. You've traveled so far tonight, through the eternal city, experiencing the daily life and grand achievements of ancient Rome. And now, it's time to rest, to let yourself drift into deep, peaceful sleep. Return with me one last time to that hillside where we began, overlooking Rome. But now it's nighttime. The city below is mostly dark, just a few scattered lights from oil lamps and torches. The stars above are brilliant, undimmed by modern light pollution. The same stars that ancient Romans gazed upon. For over 1,000 years, Rome stood as the greatest city in the Western world. From a small settlement by the Tiber to an empire spanning 3 continents. The legacy of Rome is all around us still. In our calendar months named for Roman gods and emperors, in our legal systems and government structures, in our languages, over 60% of English words have Latin roots, in our architecture and engineering. Even the word civilization comes from civitas, the Latin word for city. But more than grand achievements, the Romans were people. They loved their families. They worked and worried and hoped. They found joy in simple pleasures, a good meal, warm bath water, conversation with friends, the beauty of a garden. They lived and died, and yet something of them remains, in the ruins that still stand, in the words they wrote that we can still read, in the innovations they made that we still use. As you lie here now, so deeply relaxed, so ready for sleep, imagine that Roman evening settling over the ancient city. The air cooling, the sounds of the day fading, families settling into their homes, the gentle splash of fountains continuing their eternal song. The Romans had a beautiful evening greeting, bona nox, good night. They understood rest as essential. They built their entire cities to support public health and well-being. The baths, the aqueducts, the public spaces, all designed to make life better, more comfortable, more civilized. So rest now, as Romans rested, as humans have rested for millennia at the end of each day. You are part of that great continuity, that human story that stretches back through time. You are safe. You are comfortable. You are ready to sleep. The aqueducts still carry water. The roads still lead somewhere. The Colosseum still stands. And you can finally let go completely, drifting into sleep, like a boat on the Tiber, carried gently, peacefully, toward dreams. Bona Nox, good night. Sleep deeply. Sleep peacefully. May you wake refreshed, like dawn over the 7 hills of Rome.